Hello! Welcome once again to the Turret of Pleasure here in the Enchanted Kingdom of Hermione. I'm your host, Zip Gun. Sitting here kind of melancholy. Each passing day, another great musician dies, it seems. And of course, it's all if you've got a wide taste. Though it's a really disparate group of people. And it was starting to almost get me down, and then I thought, I'm going to try to play this light. And I figured, let's take the guys that have passed in the recent weeks and see if we can form bands out of them. See what would happen in heaven, as it were. So, a new band in heaven, fall 2025. 3-piece band, maybe 4-piece. It could get kind of ornate on us. 4 musicians. I'll list them in order of perceived popularity, I think is the best way to put it. Inverse order, I should say, of perceived popularity. And I'm going to just make it. It's going to be a power trio. And on the bass is a guy who must have played on thousands of sessions. And I am not, or was not, a giant fan, not because he wasn't a great musician, because he really was, but most of the stuff he played on just did not resonate with me. I'm pretty sure, boy, I've been trying to research this. He played here in Victoria, I think, with the Gary Burton Quartet, with Tiger Akoshi, Bob Moses, Gary Burton. I think it was Anthony Jackson on bass. Anthony Jackson was a great proponent of the 6-string bass guitar, not the Fender Bass VI, which is my preferred 6-string bass. But apparently back in the day, and this would have been early days, he experimented with Fender Bass V, the 5-string bass, the really weird one, 15 frets, and it looked like Dolly had gotten a hold of it. So he gets a gold star right there. Now, having said all this, he played with pretty damn near everybody. He had some sort of soft soul hits with a band. What were they called? Easy Pieces, I think they were called. And he was never a star, but he played and played and played and played. And I thought I better catch up to speed on this guy, because I don't think I have hardly anything with Anthony Jackson playing the bass on it. So I went to good old YouTube, and sure enough, I found something new that was unbelievably fusion. And he just, he's amazing. As a technician, this guy was tough to beat. He had beautiful tone. He had great intelligence as to what to do with all those extra strings. And, just one of those guys, you could get him on a gig and he'd do what you needed him to do, and it would be right. So Anthony Jackson's my bass player. He was probably the least well-known of the trio I'm going to list here. The second would be the drummer, an occasional pianist, and even more occasional melodica player, and that would be Jack DeJohnette, the legendary Jack DeJohnette. And it is tough for me to overstate the importance of Jack DeJohnette in my musical journey, because back when I was very young, I didn't really know what jazz was. Jazz was saxophones. I was into electric guitar, man. And only in the late 60s jazz was weird. Weird I liked. And I remember the first jazz record I ever really got into, never bought it, strangely, until recently, was Charlie Hayden's Liberation Music Orchestra. And that got me into jazz. And and then when Chicago came out, I kind of thought they were jazz. I was 9. So, anyway, I as I got into jazz, I really got into a record label called ECM. And ECM have always been a very high quality label. Funnily enough, this is funny, I have right in front of me, on a recent review, the first record I ever bought with Jack DeJohnette on it. And I bought it because Keith Jarrett's on it, because I thought this would sound like the Bremen Lausanne solo concerts. I was wrong. This is quite different. I still really like it. Note the funny flap. This was a promo copy that ECM rather geniusly made it like this so you could prop it up on your record store thing. Anyway, that's the first time I ever noticed his name. I had heard him before on Miles Davis records, not knowing the name. And I had heard him before in the Charles Lloyd Quartet, which I'd heard a little tiny bit in the 60s before I knew anything about anything. However, once I noticed him here, he popped up on a lot of records I bought in the 70s, Mr. Dejanette. And I think it's pretty easy to say that if he's on a record, that record is better than if he wasn't on it. Literally, I can't think of anybody who could do what he did better than he did. And for me, he crystallized the sound of what a jazz drummer and drum kit sounded like. The ping of the cymbals. His ride cymbal is, I based all of my jazz drumming, such as it is, on the way he rides his ride cymbal. And I saw him twice live. He played in Victoria here at an amazing festival we had one year called Jazz in the Park. And Jazz in the Park was this radio station called C-Jazz. Imagine that. A jazz record radio station in Canada. Whew. Needless to say, it didn't last very long, but while it did, they put on a whole series, whole summer, maybe two. But one of them was really good. They had Monty Alexander with Othello Molyneux on steel drums, which was terrific. They had Art Land with Gary Peacock, which was terrific. They had Fraser McPherson. They had... And the final show was Jack DeJohnette's New Directions. Him and Chico Freeman... him and John Purcell. And Chico Freeman. Yeah, Chico Freeman, I think. And Ron Warren, I think, on bass. And they were... And he played melodica from behind the drum kit as well as his usual drums, struggling with a rented Camco kit from the local rock emporium, and watching this man try to tune this kit that was just not even really assembled in freezing temperatures in late August. He spent 20 minutes tuning it, and it just sounded like bells when he was done. Brilliant concert. I had seen him before that, though, at the ECM Festival of Music in 1975. He played with his band, the Jack DeJohnette Directions, Warren Bernhardt, John Abercrombie, Alex Foster, and I think the same bass player. And they were, of course, like that whole festival was amazing. And I never got to see him again because pretty much by then he moved on to, he did a lot of work with the Keith Jarrett Classic Trio, him and Gary Peacock and Keith Jarrett. He worked with everybody. He could play any kind of music. He was in a great sort of cheesy fusion band called Compost. And Bill Bruford has a great reminiscence of meeting him when he was in Compost, where he played clavinet as well as drums, because Compost also had Bobby Moses in it, who I also saw when he played with Gary Burton with, I think, Anthony Jackson. Anyway, DeJohnette, he's my drummer for this band. Him and Anthony Jackson on the old electric bass. Now, who's going to be our guitar player? Well, who else can it be? The most popular by a mile, who died recently. I give you Ace Frehley. And Ace Frehley, okay, my position on Kiss is reasonably documented on this channel. I think they're the worst band in the world. I think they're the worst thing ever to happen to rock music. They are the most unbelievable corporate sellout, crapola, sexist, misogynist bullshit rock ever made. Having said that, I can almost enjoy some of their stuff. Maybe Detroit Rock City once in a blue moon. I can't. But anyway, the word is amongst the apologists for Kiss, of which there are many of whom are dear friends of mine. Some friends of mine who I have deep respect for are in like Kiss tribute bands. I get it. It's nostalgia from when they were children. When I was 14 years old, I thought Kiss was the biggest pile of shit I'd ever heard in my life, and I still do. Having said that, I may be a tad more refined in my taste than most people when my age at that time. So that's me being a bit of a snob, but I thought they were dreadful. When they got to be massive through pure promo and hype and flash pots and payola and Christ knows what else, they did a interesting thing in the mid '70s. The big bands that were bands, that is to say, groups of individuals, they started putting out solo records. All the bands started. Yes, every member of Yes put out a solo record. Now, it quickly became the word in the music industry that solo records were just terrible for business. They did not sell. They cost a lot of money. They stalled release schedules of the bands that were making money. Record corporate types hated solo albums. So, Kiss, when they re-upped their new deal after Kiss Alive, which was not even remotely alive, when that broke them, as it were, and they had Rock and Roll All Night as a hit, and Beth as a hit, they re-upped their contract to a much more lucrative level, and I think it was, I don't know how many albums, 5 albums, and one of the weird stipulations in it that I thought was truly transcendent horsepower for these guys was that they would each put out a solo record, and each of these solo records would count as half a record towards the fulfillment of their contract. So in other words, the 4 solo records would count as 2 regular albums. Now, Kiss also had a deal with their label that each record would, upon release, have at least, I think it was 1 million copies. So when the solo records came time to come out, Kiss insisted that each solo record have 1 million copies of them pressed, which Casablanca really didn't want to do, but they were kind of forced into doing it. It's in the contract. They did it. And the records, needless to say, they sold about 500,000. They lost big money on them. For ages, you could find cellophane wrapped groups of the 4 of them in the delete bins at Zeller's for $2.99. This was also apparently against their contract, and Casablanca got sued for that, even though it was Polydor that was doing it. At any rate, the word is that the Ace Frehley solo record is the one, the only good one of the 4. And I thought, you know what, I gotta listen to some of this, because I vaguely remember hearing a song off of it, maybe. And the word was New York Groove. Go listen to New York Groove. Well, New York Groove is lousy. It's not even his song, needless to say. And it's not really much of anything. There's no guitar on it, really. It's like sort of... And all of these records have a very slipshod production quality about them. They sound like they were done in a hurry. And I persevered. I said, by God, I'm going to listen to this whole damn record. And I invested 36 minutes of my life into it, which is not a long record, which is the only great thing about it, perhaps. And I finally, there was one moment where Anton Fig, who's a good musician, and was apparently briefly in Kiss for a hot minute before they thought differently, changed their mind, he co-writes a song that's actually, God, is it almost prog rock? Maybe. And, Kiss kind of honks his way through it. Now, Kiss is not a particularly good guitar player. I don't care what anybody says. Yeah, he's a better guitar player than Paul Stanley. In fact, you could argue that out of the members of Kiss, he's the only real musician. But is he? Anyways, throw him into a band with Anthony and Jack. That's what I say. Watch this man, well, maybe before he drank himself into a kind of a permanent state of where he seems like he's been hit in the head with an iron bar. So there you have it. Band in Heaven, fall 2025. Ace sounded like an okay guy, but he was really troubled. And Peter. You know what? I'm gonna listen to those other 3 solo records. God help me. That'll be a whole nother video. Because the circumstances surrounding them are hysterical. It's like pure corporate greed egotism, everything but talent, everything but good music. God awful shit. So that's how I'm going to be dealing with these rock deaths from now on. The last few have really. I was going to add Danny Thompson on acoustic bass, so you could have kind of an Ornette Coleman kind of double bass quartet, but that might flummox Ace a bit too much. And Danny was less known than any of these guys, I would think, maybe. Although he was very well known in some circles in folk music. But that's the big four for the last month or so, and these three were last couple of weeks. They've been adding up. And there's probably a bunch I don't even know. I remember when Sam Rivers died, it took me 2 months to find out, which is criminal when you think about it. But Jack DeJohnette, I'm going to miss him. He was a real positive guy, a bit of a polymath. I don't know if he ever made a solo piano record, which I would like to hear, because I thought he was a really good pianist. So there you go. Rest in peace to all three. They certainly earned their dues in the music world, particularly Anthony, who just played and played and played and played and played. Jack played and played and played too. I just recently got a Julius Hemphill box set with a sadly bit of a rough recording of Julius playing with Jack in some tiny club. And it was just Jack in that band. I never heard Julius play with Jack. It makes such a difference. And Julius always had great drummers. So it's just Jack is Jack. And he brought swing and quality, and just you knew when he was playing, and it always was better. So there you go. That's it for this week. Kind of sad, but life goes on. Hopefully new musicians come to fill the void. And yeah, there you go. So thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe and like. I'm trying to make more videos. I'm trying to get my production quality together here, because the last couple of videos were kind of dog shit. But I wasn't paying attention, so I'll try to pay more attention in the future. Thanks for watching, and take care of each other. Times is getting tough. The rain is falling. It's kind of gloomy. Try to do something to cheer yourself up. I'm going to try and think of something. Take it easy, and we'll talk to you later.